Welcome to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to hit the subscribe button to the Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel and turn on the notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. We are also brought to you by PrizePicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Welcome into the Pucks with Haggs podcast, the 207th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. Thank you, as always, for listening. I am your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. Get all of my Bruins and NHL writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns 3 times a week for the Boston Sports Journal, so make sure you go to bostonsportsjournal.com. Get yourself a subscription there as well. Check out all the great stuff that's going on at that site. And I also do a weekly Q&A session. And I bring some of those questions actually into the podcast as well. With me today, longtime friend and colleague, Mick Colageo. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Good morning, everyone. You can find my stuff at Rink Wrap. I link to it on X and Facebook. And I just finished filing the hockey news chapter on the Bruins for their yearbook issue that will come out before the new season.
Very nice. Can't wait to check all of that out, Mick. We got an interesting show today. We got a topic that was definitely the discussion in the Q&A. There was repeated questions about it and a lot of interest in a particular area when it comes to the still unsigned restricted free agents out there. But I'm going to start first, Mick, with a question that I get a weekly Q&A question in the Boston Sports Journal from Cap77. He asks a question every single week during the Q&A, and it's usually like a 3 to 7 part question. There's usually like multiple questions in there, a lot of interesting stuff that gets covered. So I'm going to start including those on a semi-regular basis just because he gets into stuff that I think is interesting and stuff that we don't necessarily dig deep into. Or sometimes he brings up stuff I hadn't even really thought about, and it gets me to sort of like think about it a little bit more and flesh out what I think about certain things in hockey. So here we go. First off, were you happy? This is from Cap77 on the Boston Sports Journal Q&A. Were you happy with the hiring of Steve Spott? Mick, I don't know if we even talked much about Steve Spott. What did you think about the hiring of Steve Spott?
Well, the Bruins had a situation there where they were going to look at a lot of different stuff, and they probably spent a lot of time on a field of candidates already surveying the leagues to see who they could add to Marco Sturm's staff. So then all of a sudden, when Peter DeBoer gets fired in the wake of the Ottinger situation after losing Game 7 the way they did to the Oilers, suddenly that staff is available.
Yep.
And the Bruins have a power play guy. So I think this guy just suddenly wasn't in the field for a while. They had their spending the bulk of their time on this question, and then suddenly, boom, here he is. And so the situation got trumped. He swooped in from the outside of a situation that had been developing as kind of like, holy crap, we can get him, let's do it. And I think that was kind of what you got to do in a case like that when you're running a top 10 power play, and you've been on a very successful team, and it obviously had a severe bump in its road, and things didn't go the way they thought it would, and suddenly a guy becomes available, and biggity bang. So here he is. I think the Bruins have themselves a situation where they've got a pretty successful mind who's going to influence their special teams and be a good assistant coach in general.
Yep.
So,
no, I liked it. I mean, the one thing I think is interesting with Steve Spott, beyond, like, he's obviously got power play acumen. He's got cachet. He's done the job for a long time and had success. He's been on mostly playoff teams during his time as an NHL assistant. And the success is there. Like, the power play with Dallas was really good when he was there, and it's historically been pretty good wherever he's been. And he's got about, I think it's 12 years experience on an NHL bench. So you're talking about a guy that can bring a wealth of experience to a guy that's a first-time NHL head coach in Marco Sturm, and a couple of guys in Chris Kelly and Jay Leach who have some NHL bench experience, but I wouldn't say an overwhelming amount of NHL bench experience. So to have a more experienced voice with that group, I think is definitely helpful, and I think they absolutely needed a power play guy. And it had to be somebody too, Mick, I think, that has the clout, has the resume that is going to get everybody's attention too. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's some established players on the Bruins power play that you're going to need to bring in somebody that's got some cachet and that has had success and that they're going to buy into running that power play, and kind of maybe telling them things at times that they don't necessarily want to hear or haven't wanted to hear in the past, but need to hear and need to do differently. I think that's all good. The one thing about Spott that I think interests me most is to see, like, I think unless I'm wrong, every year that he's been an NHL assistant, it's been for Pete DeBoer. Like, every place that Pete DeBoer has gone, Steve Spott has been kind of his right-hand man, been his power play guy, been a guy that's been on the bench with him. I think this is the first time he's going to be on an NHL bench with somebody not named Pete DeBoer. So I think that's going to be interesting too, just to see how that whole dynamic works as well, and to see how that transition goes. But I just think it was a no-brainer to bring him in based on the resume, based on the Bruins' need, based on his availability. Like you said, like, they were probably going through some other names, and then all of a sudden Pete DeBoer gets fired, and you have somebody looking for a job that has not been looking for a job for the last, like, 10 plus years. And you're able to, fit him into a great situation for you where you really needed a guy like that. So I like it. And I'm really interested to see how the whole thing is going to work. It's also good, I think, Mick, too, to bring in outside voices, to bring in outside perspectives, to bring in people. Both Sturm and Spott are going to be sort of outsiders coming into the Bruins sphere now, and I think that's a good thing. I think you need people like that, fresh perspective, different eyes, all that stuff, especially coming off a year that the Bruins had. So I think that's going to be good stuff. All right, number 2, your reaction to Gavin McKenna's commitment to Penn State. I'm a frequent college hockey spectator, and admittedly, I have mixed feelings about it. I guess it's a no-brainer for McKenna, who gets to develop against college competition in a great facility and earn a good 6-figure sum, certainly a lot more than whatever stipend they hand out in junior these days. Now, I think this is interesting. Like, he's going to Penn State, and I think he's getting, like $700,000, $800,000. It's a large sum that he's getting in NIL money to go to Penn State. And I would assume that played a huge role in him going to a place that's not, that's had a good hockey program, but it's not by any means a college hockey powerhouse. One of the perennial powers, one of the ones that you would expect a player like that to go to if he was going to pick the college hockey route. It's interesting to me, is this something we're going to start to see more of, is teams that want to sort of get their place on the map are going to start, like, putting together huge sums of money to try to go after these players. And could that change the way things are done in college hockey? Could that change the structure? Could that change the power dynamic from, the traditional Minnesota, BC, BU, North Dakota, like the teams that we've always known, Denver, like the teams that we've always known to be the powerhouses that don't necessarily have to, like, spend crazy amounts of money to bring these players in. Those players just go to those schools because of the tradition, the history, the coaching, like all that stuff, the culture. Is that going to change now where the money is involved? And you're going to be able to, like, I think it certainly is going to change players choosing college hockey over junior, or even the really high level, high household name Gavin McKenna, generational types are going to start choosing that over college hockey, given the choice. But I also think, Mick, like, we're fooling ourselves if we don't think that, like, basically what it feels like to me now is back in the day, the junior teams either either through back channels, like, or whatever, would find ways to get money to players to go there. Like, I think that's something that absolutely happened. I remember hearing about that, and I have no proof that this absolutely happened, but I remember hearing about that with a NHL star player who's still in the league, who was supposed to go to BU, but instead went to the OHL because there was a huge amount of money waiting there for him instead of going to college hockey. And I think that happened. I think it happened in the past. And now colleges are legally able to do this and lure players away with the money, and along with the college program and everything else. Just curious your thoughts on all this as he laid it out, and sort of all the factors here at play.
Well, I think there was a big concern um, in junior hockey for NCAA to overlook or change how they view um, major junior players and allow them in NCAA completely. It's scary because it could shift a lot of things. The full ramifications weren't are never known in a case like this. Or what are the levers are going to get involved, and what the Finnish influence will be 10 years from now. But this is a really intriguing point, because if Penn State does this, will Michigan State, Ohio State,
Right.
which are reputable hockey schools, but bigger football schools.
Right.
And where else are
But they
schools
have the
like this
money.
going to?
To your point,
Bingo.
they have the money to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they have the football money, then will they become the hockey powers, and will Boston College eventually be as Boston College is in football?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's a finite number of players, and if the money is elsewhere, then isn't just what happens to major junior Canadian hockey. It's what happens to traditional hockey powers that don't happen to be major football institutions in terms of 100,000 seat stadiums and gigantic revenue.
Yeah.
And what if other schools that are at the edges of this start wanting to do more than nibble at hockey and get
Right.
more involved?
That's what I mean. The schools that have a lot of money, right, from
Right.
boosters. Yeah.
College football could be the thing that turns the revenue produced by college football could change the entire landscape of hockey development
It
as
could.
it enters the NHL.
I mean, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg, so we don't really know what way it's going to go, but it's interesting to think about all that stuff and wonder which way it's going to go, how much the money or the potential money could sway what's traditionally been the reasons why players have chosen the college they go to. And, will the sort of hockey culture hold up to the potential there of all this money and all these other things going on? Or is it going to be one of those things where, like, hockey players, hockey people, hockey families can be super stubborn and can stick to what they know and stick to the culture that they have and stick to their guns in a lot of respects? Is this going to be one of those instances where hockey sort of doesn't really grab hold of this, or this is like a one, the Gavin McKennas of the world are kind of the exception to the rule, and there's not going to be many others that are going to follow that way. The whole thing is going to be interesting to
Too
see how
much
it pans
money.
out and see
It's
which
too
way it
much money,
goes.
and the only thing that can stop it will be the NCAA, and depends on how they look at it. What does the NCAA think of it? What do the football schools think of it? And do they want to make this power play? Because if the money's there, there's nothing else to stop it. The NHL has no oversight. The
Right.
junior hockey has no oversight. All they can do is what would the NHL do? What is it? I mean, and for the NHL, this would be a spectacular problem to have. On one hand, it would be a terrible uh, dissolution of its longstanding relationship to major junior hockey in Canada. But at
Yeah.
the same time, if the NHL isn't saying no to continued expansion at the staggering fees that those cities are willing to pay to get into the league,
Yeah.
then how much more are they going to accept a scenario like this?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it's a bad thing that players are choosing college hockey over a major junior. Like at the end of the day, like it's a better deal for them. It's a better, it's a better development system. I think it's a safer, better development system for pro hockey. It sets them up in a much better way for a life after hockey if they don't make it in hockey. Like they get an education at a great school. It's hard to argue against if it shifts towards that way. I just thought it was really, as soon as, like, when I think Penn State and I think like them getting a player like Gavin McKenna, I start to think to myself, is this going to be the trend where like the football schools and the big time colleges that have a ton of money are going to start chasing after these hockey players and change the the world order sort of college hockey and what it's been for a long time. I don't know that
Might be
that's
the
going to
best
happen.
question, best situation question of the year, probably.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch how that whole thing goes down, while also knowing that Gavin McKenna is going to be a one and out, most likely going to Penn State. It's going to be a one and done sort of situation after he's drafted.
And
Um,
that could affect it too.
yeah, exactly. All
Maybe
right.
schools don't want to be in that game once that becomes the thing, and then they start getting involved that way, and then maybe that affects how far this goes economically.
Yeah, a lot of interesting sort of moving parts with that. All right, number three. It looks like the decentralized draft will return in 2026. I know that disappoints a fair amount of people, but I guess the savings on travel, lodging, etc., was significant, and they intend to learn from this year's version, i.e., the awkward and time-consuming video welcomes from the team staffs. Yes, please. They need to get rid of that. Any idea where it will be headquartered next year? I would guess that it's going to be a rotating set number of places that they would do it. I would guess it's going to be like LA, Vegas, Nashville, something like that, and they would bounce back between those three places. That would be my best guess. I don't have any inside information on that, but I think the NHL wants to turn these into TV events. The NHL wants to turn these into, they're never going to be the NFL. They're never going to be the NBA when it comes to the draft, but they want to try to be the NFL and the NBA. And they want to try, and especially when they're in, cahoots with ESPN to produce the whole thing. They try to turn it into that anyway. But like the NHL loves to trot celebrities out there and say, look, see all the important people. They love hockey too. And, they try to find as many people as they can to bring to these events to sort of add star power to them. And the only way you're going to do that is by having it in LA, Vegas, Nashville, places like that. You're not going to be able to do it going to like Columbus, going to, somewhere, some outpost in Canada. So I would expect it's going to, and why not have it in the Sphere every few years? I think that was a great, that was a success. And I think it looked really good. And I think people raved about it afterwards. So it'll be interesting to see how it works. But I do think it was obvious they were going to this to save money. And what I knew once the teams, the 32 NHL teams saw how much money they saved by not flying everybody out to Vegas for a week or wherever for a week, LA, scouts, staff, like the whole kit and caboodle. Once they saw how much
Media
money they saved
relations.
by staying home, there was zero way this was ever going to go back again.
Yeah.
And Don Sweeney didn't hate it when we asked him about it. He kind of said it made some things easier to be able to stay home and do things from here, even though it is nice, I think, to have all the GMs under one roof, to have all the scouts under one roof, to have all the people there. It can make things happen, but in this day and age with people being, a video chat away or a phone call away or a text away, it takes away some of the need to have everybody under the same roof anymore.
And of course, the Bruins were going to be the management team that sat there waiting for the cue that they're on screen with their draft pick, but
Technical
they don't
difficulties,
know
man.
it. I don't know if had Wayne Cashman not made it back here for the Centennial, I would have seriously speculated if he was the one who cut the cord there so that they didn't get audio and know that they were ready to go. So because that situation was so much along the lines of how people look at the Bruins and their prospect pool and all this stuff. Whereas I guess this year the attention's shifting to the Avalanche as being the team that's reached the bottom of the barrel as far as their future goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tough one. A lot of Bruins personnel, media relations people were in Vegas last year for this. So they all stay home now.
Yep.
They don't need to go out there. Maybe one person, I'm not sure exactly what they did or didn't do, but I do know it wasn't the troop that it was in Vegas. I know that those people weren't in LA. So they save a lot of money. I mean, all these scouts. I remember being stopping in a hotel with our pal Kevin DuPont, and because he wanted to stop off and do some work. And so I went with him there, and we sat in this common area, got some lunch, and we're out in the lobby. And off come through the lobby this march of Bruins management right in front of me, and PJ Axelson spots me and starts walking right over, hand extended to shake hands. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I haven't talked to this guy in forever. Yep. It was a lot of fun seeing all those guys at once, and Ryan Nato stopped and talked, and I'm thinking, it's fun for us.
Yes.
I'd much rather do that than sit at home and seeing the Sphere. I'm a sucker for man-made wonders. I'm so glad I got to Vegas for this one. I've been to a handful of NHL drafts, and if that's the last one, then I'm glad that was it. So
there you go. It went out with a bang. I like that, Mick.
You got it.
All right, let's take a break in the action right now to talk about PrizePicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Join over 10 million users and get started today. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun and it's super simple. PrizePicks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite hockey players with players from baseball, basketball, esports, and so much more. You can also now win up to 2,000 times your money on PrizePicks, and PrizePicks now offers Venmo, MasterCard, and Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. So download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. For those of you listening to this episode of the podcast, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS and enjoying all this hockey talk, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Bruins content with fellow Bruins talkers like Conor Ryan and Evan Marinofski. There's also the CLNS Media Network and Celtics All Access on CLNS, the NBA History Channel, Patriots Press Pass, and Bruins Rinkside YouTube channels as well. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the very instant a new Pucks with Haggs podcast video drops on the interwebs. All right, Mick, let's get into the second part of this podcast, where we're going to talk about restricted free agents that are still out there. And there was a lot of questions on my Q&A this week about, should the Bruins trade some players, open up some cap space, and chase after some of these restricted free agents with offer sheets. Now, the Bruins have about $2 million in cap space right now. They basically sort of filled out their roster with what they did on July 1. To the chagrin of some people are saying there's too many third, fourth liners on there. There's not going to be enough scoring. A lot of people did not like the Tanner Jeannot signing. I happen to like it. I think he's going to be a very useful guy, and I think fans are going to like him in a Bruins uniform once they get to know him. But I also I think there's some validity to they're going to struggle a little bit offensively, and there's not enough scoring punch. They're counting on Victor Arvidsson to bounce back and give them a really good year, and I think a lot is going to balance on that player in particular. And some of their young players developing and some of the pieces falling into place, and Morgan Geekie continuing to produce at a really high level. Like, a lot of things are going to have to go right, I think, for the Bruins to be pretty viable offensively. But that may turn into a team that, like, has to play good defense, relies on Swayman to be really good this year, and plays low scoring games where maybe they got to add a little scoring punch at the trade deadline. But I'll read this from Mike from Stoneham. This was the question that I got in the Q&A. Joe, your podcasts recently have been truly fabulous, really insightful, and must listen. I give Mick all the credit in the world for that. I think he does an excellent job on this. Mick, you're getting some kudos here from Mike from Stoneham. He likes the podcast.
That's your hometown too. How the heck does that happen?
What's that?
He's from Stoneham too. That's your backyard.
I know. Still wondering why Bruins have not been more aggressive pursuing other teams' RFAs. Feel like a great year to go pressure some teams and grab some young emerging offensive talent. So they might have to salary dump a Korpisalo or even a player like Andrew Peak and give a younger guy like DiPietro or Harris or Callahan a spot. Seems worth it to add some young offensive talent. Certainly Gabe Velarde or Marco Rossi. Luke Hughes would sure add some sizzle and be an upgrade to Andrew Peak, even if on the back end. But even Mason McTavish, Connor Zary, Sam Colangelo, these are all guys who have at least shown they can score at the NHL level, and the compensation for these lower tier guys would be a second or third round pick. Seems like a way to improve your talent while draining someone else's young talent that they have drafted and developed. And that's from Mike from Stoneham. Mick, your thoughts on that?
I do think that Don Sweeney made an interesting point when we talked to him after free agency regarding Group 2 offer sheets and the climate for offer sheets. And one thing he pointed out with the one that was used by the St. Louis Blues on the Edmonton Oilers for two players after last season, the 23-24 season.
Yep.
It took a particular team with a particular problem and a particular couple of players who were vulnerable and in a situation that they could come at them that way. Is it possible that there could be
players that were blocked too, Mick, right? They were kind of blocked in the Oilers organization from playing bigger
They weren't going to get there, yeah.
Right.
So good point. And so I'm looking at this and saying, okay, so the NHL put out just so people know, I'll just run through it real quick. You said second or third round pick. In order for a Anaheim, let's just say Mason McTavish, Anaheim would have to not match a $5 million AAV in order for it to be a second round pick,
right?
Because the 4.68 is the threshold. If your offer sheet is over 2.3 million and no more than 4.68 million, then the compensation for a team that does not match is a second round pick. So it's got to be over 4. So you're figuring, okay, so it's got to be a 5. And if it's a 5, is Anaheim going to match that? I think Anaheim is very proactive right now and aggressive about building their team, introducing veterans to a team that they believe in, the young core of their club, and they don't want to let go of their young core of their club. They've made their decisions already, and they're going to grow this thing, and they believe in what they got right now surging forward. So if a team comes along and tries to do that, it's going to take a whopper of an offer. So I don't know that the floodgates are necessarily going to open here, in order to get certain guys off of some of these teams. And I remember Don Sweeney's, when we talked about Morgan Geekie in this regard, are you concerned at all that the climate has changed and that people are going to come after Geekie here? And he's like, we have no concern whatsoever. In other words, the timeline to him didn't matter. They were going to get it done. Now, they did get it done ahead of July 1.
Yeah,
So maybe they had more concern than they were willing to admit. But
maybe.
I don't know. I guess this thing isn't going to quite fly like I thought it might. I started
Yeah.
wondering about it at least.
Well, I mean, maybe it would have been a little more difficult for the Bruins if they had to like sign free agents and then fit Geeky in afterwards. Certainly, that would have made it a little more challenging for them. But the fact that they were able to do everything they wanted to do and still have $2 million left over tells me they would have had enough money to sign Geeky after the fact, and it wouldn't have been an issue unless somebody like massively tried to overpay for Morgan Geeky. And I think that's essentially what you have to do if you want to get one of these players is you're probably going to have to overpay for them by quite a bit to turn the other team off from trying to retain them, especially in this situation this year, because the salary cap has gone up significantly. And I don't think teams are under the same salary cap duress that they were last year. Certainly, nobody's under the same duress that Edmonton was under last year when they couldn't keep those two players and compromise their depth, frankly. To try to bring in veteran guys and not have those guys around. I think it hurt them to not have those two players at points during the year, even though they got back to the Stanley Cup final and didn't have quite the same showing in the Cup final that they did the year before. But those players those players went to St. Louis and made a big difference. Were a big part of that team making the playoffs. Both of them played significant roles and helped the Blues get into the postseason. So it definitely worked, and I can see why fans would point to that and say, why can't you do that with somebody else? Like, look, the Bruins would love to have a guy like Gabe Vilardi, right? Like, he's an excellent player, 6'3", 210-pound center, like has put up big numbers. I think he got to like 25 goals and 60 points last year for Winnipeg. Like, he's been good, and he's going to get paid. He's going to get a lot of money. I just don't think would it be worth it for like that's the kind of player I think it would be worth it to do for the Bruins. I'm not sure it would be worth it. Like to your point, I don't think Mason McTavish they're going to outspend Anaheim or they're going to win. He's going to come to Boston over Anaheim. Sam Colangelo, I mean, I like him. He's a Stoneham kid. I think he was a good player at Northeastern, and then he went elsewhere, finished up his college career. But he's also hasn't completely established himself at the NHL level yet. That's the kind of guy, if you were you might overspend for him and give up a draft pick for a player that you're not exactly even sure what he is at the NHL level yet. He's had some moments where he came up in the NHL and he scored a little bit, but he hasn't been with Anaheim for a very long, like sustained period, like a full season or anything like that. He looks like he's going to score and he looks talented, but I'm not sure that's the guy I would go after. Conor Zary, I liked last year when I saw him play. He definitely has skill and is gifted offensively. But again, do you blow up everything that you've done to this point to try to bring in a player like that? And put yourself into tough salary cap constraints as well doing that. I just don't think it's worth like trading Andrew Peeke or thinking about that, trying to trade Korpisalo because Korpisalo, if you trade him, Mick, do you agree with me? That's going to be a straight salary dump and you're going to have to send a draft pick along to get somebody to take him. Like, I don't think there's any way anybody's going to take him in a hockey trade. I think if you are desperate to clear cap space and you're trading Korpisalo, you're doing it while sending along like a second or a first round pick to get somebody else to take that salary. And I just don't think that's smart. I also think they need Korpisalo to be a backup to Jeremy Swayman. Jeremy Swayman needs somebody that can push him, an established NHL guy that can be somebody that can kind of light a fire under him a little bit and be a competitor that could take playing time away from him if in a competitive situation. And I don't think DiPietro is going to be able to be that guy in his first year in the NHL. I think they need somebody like Korpisalo with Swayman. So for those reasons, it doesn't make any sense, I think, to trade a guy like Korpisalo. I certainly wouldn't trade Andrew Peeke. And I don't think, bringing in DiPietro, Harris, Callahan, playing in bigger roles in order to go after somebody like this, I don't think that's the way to do it.
I don't think the Bruins are in any position to compromise any aspect of their back end
No.
strength and buttressing, if anything, buttress that You don't have how many right shots do you have on D? You got three NHL right shots on D now that you re-signed Henry Jokiharju.
Yep.
Peak is now the number three. That's where they want him. He's going to protect Mason Lowry, and good health will shelter his matchups. Uh, Korpisalo will compete. I think the Bruins love the fact that he came away from the season frustrated and dissatisfied with the number of starts based
Yep.
on everybody's sold every year after year, but the Bruins are sold on the merit system. If you're good enough, you'll make this team. If you're this, you're that. Hey,
Yep.
1 year in camp, Anders Fedberg, was that his name? The AHL
Yeah.
prospect in net. He was an American League All Star.
Nicholas Fedberg.
Nicholas, okay, he was clearly the Bruins' best goalie in camp 1 year and got sent down. And so it's not a complete BS and disingenuous stuff, but it takes extraordinary circumstances for certain guys to overcome the levers of the game of the business of hockey in order to make teams, unless they feel like those impacts are going to be well worth it. Uh, then you leapfrog those situations. Even Charlie McAvoy wasn't going to be a regular with the Bruins coming uh, out of college. He was a ATO with Providence. It took injuries upon injuries to get him into that 2017 Ottawa series. And when he shows up and plays the way he did, their plan completely changed on the spot. They knew that they had a top four defenseman and more. And so it's gone really well for him. But in this stage of his career where he should be entering the prime years of his career, McAvoy's been beset with a lot of injuries, kind of classic shoulder injuries that defensemen get. I don't think the
Yep.
Bruins are in any position to compromise their goaltending, especially after the situation with Swayman last season. They need this one to start off right. I think Korpisalo is the perfect guy. I don't know. I don't agree with this looking at a cap number and saying, okay, we can shave that by 1.5 million and add some score over here. I don't see that scenario at all. I don't think that situation is going to come to fruition. The Bruins have already made a philosophical decision here. They
Yeah.
loaded up with a bunch of bottom nine guys and have a hope so second line that really depends on, as you said, Arvidsson, but
Yep.
also on Mittelstadt.
Well, and that's the other guy I was going to mention because he got mentioned a lot too. Like fans want to trade Casey Middlestat already, and like granted, he was not good after he got here. He had a couple of flashes, but for the most part, was not good. The stretch run last year after he came over from Colorado in the trade. Um, that's another one. Like he signed for 2 years, and it's like between 5 and 6 million a year. Like you're gonna have to give up a draft pick, a good draft pick, to trade him. It's going to be a salary dump. Nobody is going to take him in a hockey trade. Nobody wants to take him in a hockey trade right now with the value as low as it is. Are you really willing to waste one of your draft picks to dump salary to try to chase after one of these restricted free agents? I think you have to see what Middlestat can do. I think they invested in him when they traded for him. They see something there, and they wanted to bring him in and feel like he's another guy that can give them more offense than what they've had, even though at the NHL level, he has never really produced at a high level over the course of a full season. Certainly, he has the skating and the skill, and you see it in flashes, and there are times you look at him and say, why does he not score more in the NHL? Why has he not become a consistent top six guy? And then you see the lack of compete at times. You see the lack of defensive want to, and the lack of consistency. And you say, okay, I can see now why he has not put up big numbers at the NHL level, because there's some parts of his game that just aren't where they need to be. But I think you need to look at him over the course of a full season, full training camp. Let him get ingratiated, let him get into a role and see what he can do before you like throw the baby out with the bathwater on that one. Like, I don't think they've given him enough time. And like you're saying, I think a lot of what they're going to look like offensively in the first half of the year is probably going to be based on like what he can do and what he can show.
I think that's how they got him. I
Yeah.
think Colorado needed to dump a salary. They weren't happy with him. And the Bruins became the team that said, okay, You want Charlie Coyle to be your captain of your bottom six the way he had been here in the Bergeron Krejci era. They had added Brock Nelson from the Islanders to be their number two, and suddenly the Avalanche was a team that was strong down the middle of the rink. And the Bruins got Mittelstadt out of that, which gives them at a Coyle-ish salary an extra year and a player that they're A, settled with if it doesn't work out, B, maybe he becomes their next Morgan Geeky, Hampus Lindholm, Pavel Zacha story, a guy who was meandering in his prior part of his career, but entering his prime years, finally they become the team who whispers to this guy and gets to him. And if they can do that with this guy, then it changes the trajectory of the Bruins in a serious way. Is it a high percentage situation? No, it was a necessary part of an overall program for them to build up draft and prospect capital, and it was part of what comes with that. This is where the season could wind up looking a lot like the year that the Bruins came into the salary cap era, where they and you made an illusion that the Bruins didn't need to wait, because of cap problems. They didn't need to wait to do their Group 2s. In that year, they had to wait to do Nick Boynton and Andrew Raycroft. Mike O'Connell had to go to them and say, hey, guys, I'm sorry. We don't have any money for you right now. Sit there and wait, and we'll come back to you. And you know what they had? They had camps like Jeremy Swayman had and seasons like Jeremy Swayman had. And the Bruins were severely affected like they were this past season. And so were their careers. And so that's why I love Korpisalo, to help ensure. That's why I love the buttressing of the defense and the priority there to set this up so that the back end is solid. There'll be a top line and hopefully not a bottom nine. But that'll depend on a lot of mitigating factors here that are yet to unfold. And Mittelstadt, to me, is at the biggest piece of that.
Yeah, you're right, Mick. Things that in that particular situation that you're talking about, things were never the same for Raycroft or Boynton, unfortunately, again, after that point when things had looked very bright for them in Boston in the youth of their careers. All right. Thank you for listening to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to hit subscribe to the Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. The show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. And download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Mick Colageo, thanks very much for joining us, my friend.
Always fun, Joe. But man, right in the middle of July, we're doing this. That's great.
That was this was a nice 45-minute ice cooler in the middle of the hot summertime talking about some hockey. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you at the rink.